Hey, how's it going? Brian here. And if you are struggling to get that creative insight out, then I want to talk about what fuels creativity. And this is research backed stuff. This isn't like something that I just made up. What is it that fuels creativity, both anecdotally from artists? How do they say, creativity happens, to actual research based science, like what they found the most creative people have in common. And I've talked about this in the past, but I want to dive into it a little bit more because I know that now there's this pressure, right? We have to create so much content, we have to put it out, and obviously we want to be innovators and we want to come up with new ideas all the time. And I've talked about our strategy and what we use to put our content calendar together. So if you'd like me to talk more about that, if you comment below, I'll definitely put together something for you on that. But I want to talk about what I believe to be and what a lot of researchers believe to be the secret to creativity. So I was reading a book called Little Bets, which, by the way, really good book. And I would recommend you pick it up. And there's one line in here that is key. And the whole idea of this book is that progress, creativity, any innovation happens in little bets. That's why the name is Little Bets. So it's not any one big thing that just happens. There's tons of great examples in here about how the big innovations that we've seen, the big creativity that you and I know, from the Steve Jobs and what he's done, what he did, and Pixar and all these other examples, really started with little bets, small hypotheses that people just kind of started going down a path. And as it yielded results, they kept going. But one big insight from this book, and I'll just read it right out of here, is that he says, indeed, Dyer's and Gregerson's findings, so this is scientific research that they've done, because they had a pool of creative executives. They wanted to see what fueled their creativity. They said their finding mirrors a preponderance of evidence that indicates that diversity, be it of perspectives, experiences, or backgrounds, fuels creativity. We see this pattern at the individual, organizational, and societal level. So what does that mean? Very simply, what we see in the most creative people is diversity of their experiences and what they're exposed to. It reminded me, I actually ran downstairs to the library to grab this book. It reminded me of this book by Austin Kleon called Steal Like an Artist. Interestingly, Steal Like an Artist is just one of 10 points that he makes on how to unlock your creativity. Another great book, really easy read, big words, lots of pictures, but don't let that fool you. There's tons of value in that book. So what does this all mean? And why is this important to you, right? What's the point? The point is that creativity is kind of a myth. What we think of as creativity is kind of a myth. A lot of people don't realize Beethoven, when he started, he was just mimicking Mozart. If you read about Beethoven, he was just copying Mozart's style, and then he found his own. And one of the big thesis of this book is the most creative artists, they start by mimicking and modeling those that they admire, their role models. So this idea of creativity being this innate gift that we just have, it's a myth. It's something that we like to build up as reality, but it's just really not reality. So what does that mean for you? If you've ever heard me talk about building a swipe file, this is why we build a swipe file. Now, the big disclaimer is I'm not saying go out and copy what people do, but a swipe file has been the secret weapon of the greatest marketers, the greats, the big names that you've heard of. They've built a swipe file. That's where they go for inspiration. That's where they go to model ideas that they know are working because it worked on them. So that's one thing for you to build up your swipe file. The second is to bring in diversity of experiences. What do I mean by that? There is a high correlation between the most creative people and exposure to art. I love going to art museums because it inspires me. I see colors and creativity. I just was at the Andy Warhol exhibit at the Art Institute of Chicago. Some really out there stuff that I probably wouldn't normally be into. I'm more of the impressionist artist guy. I like that wing of the museum. But when I was looking at his stuff, you can't help but be sparked with creativity. And I walked away from the exhibit with business ideas. And there is a high correlation between people who love art, who have an interest in art and music, but art is number one, and a higher likelihood of being creative. It's something like 12 times more likely when there's a strong appeal to art. So, or strong interest in art. So what's the point? Get out there and have diverse experiences. And it's not just business experience. It's literally get out there and see different things, experience different things, get into art, get into music, just try it. You'd be amazed at how it'll spark this creative side that will waken up ideas on the business side. And then purely in a business context, have diversity of experiences with other niches, other verticals. I have a buddy who's a real estate agent. He's amazing. He's crushing it in real estate. And I go and I walk into his office and I see that he has this list of all of his prospects and what he's doing to target his new prospects so he can ultimately close those deals. And I was listening to him to what he's doing to build up his prospect list. And there's two huge takeaways that I took away from. He's in real estate. I have nothing to do with real estate. I don't invest in real estate, at least not yet. Potentially in the future, we will transfer some assets towards that and invest. But right now I don't. So I literally have no interest in real estate. I'm not in the market for a home, but I have this huge takeaway from him that I can bring to my business. One is how he went about building and collecting leads. Okay. So he had some new strategies that he's doing that nobody in my space is doing. So I'm taking something really ordinary in his space, bringing it in because of a diversity of experiences, bringing it into my arena, which is coaching and consulting for brands, online physical products brands, e-commerce sellers, taking ideas that he has, bringing it into my arena, and it's innovative in my space. It's ordinary in his space, innovative in mine. And you can do the exact same thing. That was number one. Number two was how he was doing it visually. I've talked about the importance of how when we were growing our brand, my wife and I, and one VA, it was my wife and I and one VA. I was working a full-time job, and at night I would come home from work, I would eat, and from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., I'd be grinding in the basement. I had this makeshift desk. I was online, with Chinese manufacturers. They're holding up products on Skype. I'm like, yeah, let's do that one. I was barely sleeping, burning the candle at both ends, but we were able to build a very, very successful and profitable e-commerce business. Like I said, just me and her, and just grinding it out. And what I've talked about is one of the reasons why I believe we were so successful is we put our attention on what mattered, which was our numbers. So we had it very visual, but I had never done this with prospects and with potential people who would be interested in the products that we have. So to see him have these lined up, it's like, oh, I can do the same thing. And again, for him, maybe that was somewhat innovative. Maybe others in his office are doing it. But when I saw it, I said, wow, I can do that over here. And that's just, that comes from that diversity of experience. So the whole point is creativity. It's kind of a myth. If Beethoven needed to model somebody to find his own, which he eventually found his voice, right? But if he needed to model somebody, then all of us can give ourselves permission to model what's working, to find a role model, to find somebody that we want to use as the starting point. And in time, we will find our own voice. We will find our own marketing style. We will find our own way to differentiate us or our products. And then that's what will spark creativity. So model others. And the other thing is have diversity of experiences. There's research that shows that the most creative executives, the Steve Jobs of the world, had varied experiences. I'm sure you heard the story about how Steve Jobs took his calligraphy class in college, and that inspired the different fonts on the Mac before everything was monospace, right? So diversity of experiences, and look out there, see who are your direct competitors and people who are totally outside of your space, and you will find innovative ideas that you can bring in. So go get after it, take action, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.